Oh my
We
gosh.
are
Oh, look,
live.
live. 4 seconds and counting. Good morning, everybody. If there's anyone there.
Morning. Oh no, good evening, everybody in the Northern Hemisphere. Of course, Kate's in the Southern
No,
Hemisphere.
that's right. And it was just
And what
hailing
time is it,
here
Kate?
before. Oh, it's
Oh,
just 7
really?
o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, it's just gone 7 here, and it's been raining all day, so we're kind of on a par with that one.
Yeah, it's really windy outside. Apparently, the rest of other parts of the country are getting snow and things. What's going on with my light?
I don't
Oh, I have to
know.
wait for the sun to come up further. I'll just sit in the shadows until then.
Right, so welcome anybody that's there at the moment, welcome, and anyone that does start to show up as we go along, please say hi in the comments, let us know you're there, that'd be great. Hello, Helen. Helen's in the UK, or is she in New Zealand, or where are you, Helen?
I think you're in the UK, aren't you, Helen? Hello, ladies from Nova Scotia, Canada. That's pretty cool. From Portugal. Hi, Marta.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
I keep forgetting
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
absolutely,
morning for everyone. Just me.
it's pouring a rain here. I can hear it outside. Pouring of rain. Okay, so where are we up to, Kate? What are we going to chat about? Hello, Dorothy. Susan.
I don't know, Sheena. You're going to have to check your notes.
We're so
Haven't had enough coffee
prepared.
yet.
We're so prepared.
We're just winging this. Oh, my glasses are
Success
fogged up.
is in the preparation. So, hey, I think the first thing we should talk about probably is kind of what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks since we last came together. So, over to you. Can you remember? Can you remember what you've been
Now
doing?
that's an easy one because I do the same thing every day.
Oh, there must have been some changes. There must have been some changes.
Yeah, well, I've got to the stage. I'm working on the North Star, which is book number 5 in the Wild Grove series. I've got to the stage of that where it's now flowing, which is always a relief when I get there. And what I mean by that is I don't have to struggle with figuring out the story anymore. All I have to do is sit down and write, and it just it's got its own momentum going, which is good. And I posted yesterday on Facebook and Instagram this cheeky little picture of my screen. And if you look really, really closely at the screen of my little computer that I write on, you'll find out the secret about the book. So I guess it's not a secret anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
But
this
it's
is
really,
this fiction.
yep, this is fiction. Book number 5. This is really funny because before I
Oh,
started these
wow.
books, I'd never wrote series. I always wrote standalones. I think the only series
Yeah.
I did was a couple of novella series way, 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 way back. Way back. Mhm. So to spend so much time with the characters is actually, I'm finding it really enjoyable, I guess, because they're like friends now. It's like going to Wellsford
Yeah.
to visit my friends. Mm.
Yeah.
So how about
Lovely.
you? What have you been up
And
to?
Wellsford is that? Oh, I've been in a bit of a whirlwind, really. I've been opposite to you. I haven't done a lot of writing because I have been, I suppose, really promoting, you could say. I had a book talk last Friday. So myself and my husband went over to, it was an in-person one, and we went over to a local sort of spiritual centre near here, about an hour's drive, because we live right on the coast of southeast coast of the UK. We're in a very remote rural area, which is lovely, but it just takes like ages to get anywhere. So it's about an hour away, but it's all right. You get used to it. But I loved it because I love I love talking to new audiences anyway. I'm used to performing to an audience, if you like, with the music and being a teacher all my life. So, and I love meeting new people. So a new audience is perfect for me. As long as they know what I'm talking about, if you know what I mean. And there were a few pagans in the audience. There were some writers in the audience. That's always the first question that I ask, But so half of the night was me chatting about a potted history of my writing and magical life, and where the two merged, where they mixed. Which is always difficult to pinpoint, isn't it, where they mix, because they kind of blur and they become one, as we're probably going to talk about as we go along, as we said the other day. But and then the second half of the night was Ian and I took our PA and we did some Morrigan's Path songs. So that was great. That was always a joy playing our music. And of course, because the music is a format of the writing, it's another medium of the writing. It's just so much fun to be able to share that with other people. So it was great.
I'm always
It's
really
great doing that.
envious of the fact that you live, like, even if it's just an hour away, where you can go and talk to like-minded people. I don't know what sort of audience I'd have here where I live if I went and did anything sort of witchy. I'd
Oh,
probably
really?
be
There are no.
surprised, actually,
Yeah.
because we're really kind of everywhere. So
Yeah. 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 Normally, sometimes we're subterranean, sometimes we're underground. But I think here in the UK, I don't know, I'm surmising this. Let us know if you experience any difference, everybody. But I've got a feeling here in the UK where the pagan community, the magical community, druids, witches, all kinds of pagans are it's a growing community. People are coming out more and more. I was talking to an American author last week, and we published the episode on the podcast a couple of days ago, Karen Tate, and she's a great author, and she was brought up in the Bible Belt, Kate, brought up in the Bible Belt as a Catholic, and her story was just amazing, and she's just brought this book out called Normalizing Abuse, which is basically, the fact that sexism, racism, inequality, exploitation of women has been normalized since God knows when. So, you know, and because she's a goddess of, she's a follower of goddess spirituality, and she's a minister as well. She, this is something that she talks about, writes about, and it was really interesting talking to her. But I think in the US, they certainly seem to experience more discrimination, prejudice. I don't know. Enlighten us on that. Anybody? Shari, who's in Minnesota. Who else is in the USA? We are coming out of the closet on our broomsticks.
yeah,
Yay.
over here in New Zealand, it's far more secular. I mean, obviously we have Christians and, religions and things, organized religions, but it's meeting someone who's Christian is actually, I guess it depends on who you hang out with, but there's a lot of us who are not brought up in any sort of religion at all. I think that's probably the norm here.
Okay.
Which means also that we don't get a lot of the same hang-ups if we decide to change our path.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it sounds like, I mean, growing up in the Bible Belt would be really tough. Really tough. And one of
I
those
know.
fundamentalist Christian families.
Yeah. Just imagine it. I mean, I can't imagine it really, but I just find it fascinating chatting to people who are who are experiencing and have experienced a totally different life, but yet have found magic somewhere along the line. Have discovered goddess spirituality, paganism on some level to some degree. But Great Grimsby in Lincolnshire. Yay!
Catherine says last Saturday I went to a witches market. I'd love to be able to go to things like that.
Oh,
We just don't see it here.
no. You're going to have to come to the UK, Kate.
I know. Every now and then we've thought about moving there, but that's actually too hard. Visas and things. It's
Is
really
it?
hard to move to another country.
Yeah.
And not only
But you
that,
can
but I have all my kids here, so we just come for
I know.
visits. Mm.
Have you been to the UK before?
I have. Was a long time ago now, though. It was after I finished school. Like your typical Kiwi kid goes on the great overseas experience, OE we call them. Leave school, go to the UK because you can get 2-year working visas from here
Yeah.
to go to the UK.
Yeah. And yet
I didn't stay
your
2 years, but I went.
yeah, but your books are set in the UK, aren't they? Welsford, is that you? Is
Mm.
that Britain? Yeah.
Yes, it's set in the UK. Welsford's a made-up place, though. Welsford is
Yeah.
actually named after a little town here in New Zealand, near where my grandparents lived when I was a kid. I just thought it sounded
Yeah.
like a good name, and it wasn't an actual place in the UK when I looked it up. So that
Yeah.
was good.
Oh,
But
that's
I've set
great.
them there because you have the long history. You have the standing stones and things like that, and we don't have that here. But that also gave me the opportunity when it came to write the Selena Wilde books, and I brought her here just for the heck of it. And so those ones are set in New Zealand, which was fun because it allowed me to change the focus slightly. How
Yeah.
do you live and practice in a place that doesn't have that sort of history to it?
Yeah. Yeah. So what do? Do you find yourself doing sort of research, or does it all come from your imagination?
Bit of both. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do a wee bit of research, and I probably get a lot of things wrong, but that's just the way it goes. Um, yeah, most of it I just make up as I go along.
Yeah, I know. That's the beauty of being a writer, isn't it? The beauty of being a fiction writer.
Yeah, and I know that I get Britishisms, some of those things wrong because although our language is very similar, there are things that I miss. But that's hopefully everyone just overlooks that sort of thing and goes, well, it's a good story anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly enjoying The Gathering. I'm a little bit behind everybody. Because I imagine that all these people that are joining us are people that have read all your books, and I am just starting with The Gathering, so I'm listening to the audio book of The Gathering at the moment, which has been brilliant today because, like I say, it's been raining all day. I got absolutely soaking this morning walking the dogs out on the beach, and so I came back, dried them off, had a bath, and I was really tired because I don't know about anybody else, but we're coming up to the full moon, and I get really affected. Who gets affected by the full moon? How does the full moon influence you? We'd love to know, because I don't know about you, but I get terribly, I just get wired. I mean, last night I went to bed fairly early, 10, 11 o'clock, and I just didn't sleep for hours. My mind was just bing, 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 all these ideas. I just wanted to get up and write them down. And I thought, no, 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 Sheena, don't get up, because as soon as you get up, you'll wake up properly, and then you really won't be able to get back to sleep. But the thing is, I couldn't get back to sleep for hours anyway, so I might as well have got bloody up. But well, consequently, today, yeah, I was really tired, but I was so glad that I had your book on audio, and I just, after I had a bath, laid on the bed and listened to The Gathering. But I think I
Yeah.
might have to go back a couple of chapters because I fell asleep after. That's not because I was tired, and it was sending me to sleep. But yeah.
Yeah, we were
But
really
yeah, so
lucky
I'm
to
really
find Katie our narrator, she actually lives here in New Zealand. She lives where we used to live before we moved here. She was only a couple of hours away. So we actually went and met her and all sorts of things and had a lot of fun together. Valerie is currently listening to the first tracks of Becoming Morgan that Katie's sending to her as she's doing them, which is nice because Valerie was ill while I was writing Becoming Morgan, so she wasn't able to read along as I write like she usually does. So the story's brand new to her, but she's getting to listen to it now. So that's good.
Oh, wow. Great.
Because
So
usually,
all
sorry, I
your
was just going
books.
to say, usually I write a couple of chapters and then she reads them and she tells me if I'm on the right track or the wrong track.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So every book you've written is an audio book as well.
Not yet, but they will be.
Yeah.
Katie's behind. She's done the first 4 books. She's now done she's in the process of doing Becoming Morgan. She's done the threading, which is the novella at the end of Follow the Wind, and she's done Follow the Wind. Yeah, I think that's where we're up to. Follow the Wind, the threading, and Becoming Morgan will be available as soon as I get this new shop up and running. But they're actually
brilliant.
2 of them are actually done. And we've been having problems with our distributor for the audio books, as in she didn't pay us. So she's in the process, hopefully, of taking all those books down, all the audio books down from everywhere, and then I'm going to distribute them myself rather than go through this person and her company. So for a while, they'll disappear eventually from places like Audible and things.
Okay.
But I don't know when that will happen.
Yeah.
And then they'll go back up, or they'll be available wherever I put them. So that was a bit of a headache with the administration side of things. But you run into that when you're working it all out yourself. So
Yeah.
so if you're listening to them on Audible, I'd get cracking because I don't know how long they'll be there for. They'll disappear for a while from Audible. But I'm not sure how much I like Audible anyway. We get paid about 35 cents per listen from Audible. Are your books audio books? They are, aren't they?
I've got the Witchlit series. They're the first 3 books. Yeah, the 3 books in one are an audio book. And we got she was in our band for a while, actually, and she's an actress, so she's very good at voices, and I couldn't do. I'd like to narrate my 2 non-fiction books, which we're going to make a start on next year after Christmas, The Witch Wavelength and Riches for Witches. I'm looking forward to that because I think, I don't know about you, but I like to listen to a non-fiction book narrated by the author, because I think it just gives you that more of a personal connection with the author. But I couldn't have done accents and things for my fiction, the Witchlit series. So we got Kate to do it, and she did a really good job. So yeah, so it's good fun. And also we were able to include the music in it, so we've got like intros to each book with a song, and
nice.
yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
So
I actually went over and hung out with Katie when she was doing Follow the Wind, because Follow the Wind is set in New Zealand, and so she's British, so she can't do a Kiwi accent. So we tried it with me doing the Kiwi accents, but I was rubbish at it. So she ended up just doing the whole thing, except for Clover. I Follow the Wind audiobook. I am actually the one that does Clover's voice, because apparently I can talk like a 2-year-old really well.
wow. Wow.
Oh, three.
Oh, that must have
3
been
or
great.
something in the book.
Yeah, that must have been
But
great
I'm
fun
going
doing
to.
that.
It was. I mean, I'd never done anything like that before, so it was actually fun. But in the end, I decided that it wasn't up to standard. I wasn't, professional enough for us to go ahead with using my voice in it. But I am actually going to record the audiobook for Ground and Centre myself, for exactly the reasons that you just said about liking to hear the author
Yeah,
reading the nonfiction. And not only that, but I mean, half the book's me talking about things that I've done and seen and have happened to me. So it makes sense that I would do it. I had hoped to have that done already, but with the screenplay writing, that's been popped on the back shelf. So it'll be coming soon. Hmm.
yeah. How's that going? How's the screenplay writing going?
Good. I sent the draft of what I've done so far through and got some really good feedback. They're happy with how it's going so far, and so I'm just keeping going. I hope to have the first draft of the pilot episode finished next week, but it's such a learning curve. I read over the parts of The Gathering that are going into the screenplay, and I realize, there's more things that I can do, and it's just so much fun. And I'm doing a couple of master classes on screenwriting and things, and it's just fascinating. It's learning a whole new skill, which is
Yeah,
I'm really enjoying it. I mean, it's taking up a lot of time, and I don't usually work on such big projects more than one of them at a time, but I'm managing to juggle it. But it means I've had to put a lot of other things, yeah, aside for a while. Like I had
yeah,
hoped to have a lot more things available in the shop when we open it, which is hopefully going to be really soon. But that's not going to be the case. But that's the way it goes. You have to be flexible as you go along, don't you? When it comes to
yeah.
plans and what you're doing.
You have to go with the flow, don't you? I mean, I'm learning to go with the flow. Like, for example, when I was saying just a minute ago about the full moon and not getting much sleep last night, normally, and this is only like maybe couple of years ago, I would have pushed through today. I would have pushed through and, got back to my desk and wrote or just, worked. But I think as you get older and wiser, you have to listen to your body. You really have to listen to your body. And that just doesn't work for me anymore, because I just end up burning myself out. So I have learned to, and it's taken me a long time, taken me a long time to listen. But and you learn you learn through trial and error, don't you? But I burnt myself out so many
You sure
times.
do.
Oh my God. So now I think, no, I'm knackered. I'm going to rest. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to, and the thing is, you can lay on your bed, you can watch a film, or you can listen to an audio book, or until you drift off like I did today. And I feel great tonight. I feel well rested. Probably won't be able to get to sleep again, because I've got loads of energy and I've been sleeping all day. Ridiculous. But
Yeah, I'm really
yeah.
wary of creative burnout because
Mm,
I've got so much I want to do. The last thing I need is to
mm,
spend 6 months or a year with writer's block because I got burnt out. So that means,
no.
I've put back the publication date for the book that I'm working on now, The North Star, a couple of times, and I didn't like having to do that, but I just I just need to take care of myself and make sure that I can write long term because I've got another
Yeah.
3 books after that I want to put out, and you can't do that if you're burnt to a crisp and crying in the corner.
No, you're absolutely right. And the thing is, yes, that we're in it for the long game. We're playing the long game here. And like you, I've got loads of ideas for other books. I'm really excited about this late getting back into story writing again, and the Grail Maiden, this Arthurian novel. But I haven't done anything on that this week. I haven't done anything on it. I did the chapter summaries last week, and I've just been so caught up with podcast episodes, promotion, book talks. What else have I been doing? Oh yeah, I had that meeting. I don't know if you remember, folks, but in the last time Kate and I were chatting on the show, I had a meeting with a local Christian spiritual community that are based just down the road from me,
Yeah,
and
tell us
just
how
on the
that
beach.
went.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, no.
Here goes.
Yes, come on.
So
I
I
think we
went
could probably guess, but tell us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'd already had a chat with the bloke on the phone. I'd sent an email saying the itinerary for the retreat would be yoga, meditation, walks in nature,
All the
rituals
benign
in the
stuff.
well, it's not really yeah, it's basically I just didn't mention
It
anything
sounds
about
benign.
tarot cards or magic or anything like that, But,
That's right.
I thought labeling it as goddess spirituality would be a good umbrella, you know?
Mhm.
And to be fair, he was a very nice guy. He was a nice guy. He made me a lovely cup of tea, and we went and sat in his office. And he said that, but you know how you can tell with people when they've got that look, they've got that kind of demeanor of resignation, So it was like, he kind of sat back, and I thought, yeah, he's just got me here just so that he can have a nose about what I do. And but he's already made his mind up. I knew that he'd already made his mind up. So when he said to me, well, we've had a look at your website, and I thought, well, I'm not going to change my bloody website just to suit. I'm not going to compromise myself, So all my books have got witch in the title. So I don't actually say that I am a witch. I don't think in the text on my site, but I mean it's pretty obvious. I'm pagan, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud to be what I am. And I said to him, "Oh, you mean the witch thing? You mean the witch thing?" And he sort of went, "Well," and I said, "Okay." He said, "Personally, Sheena, I don't have a problem with you. You can believe what you like. It's not a problem for me." He said, "But I just think
That's
it will be a
generous of him.
yeah, I think it will be a problem for others in my community." And I thought, right, okay. I said, "Okay." And Kate, I still find it weird and amazing that people still associate the word witch with evil spirits and dark forces and demons and the devil, but they do. And it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's pretty sad, really. It's pretty sad. And I said to him, I just think, what people fear what they don't understand, and there's so much
Mhm.
misinterpretation now. And come on, we're in the 21st century, it's behind us, but clearly it isn't. It's kind of still with us and present in this century. But I said, well, to be honest, I kind of expected this, and I'll just go somewhere else. I'll find. But the thing what makes me laugh more than anything is that this spiritual retreat center is supposedly open to all faiths and none. And
Yeah.
I mean, I met
Mhm.
a friend of mine who was walking their dog yesterday, coming back from the chapel, which is where I go every day, 7th century. And he'd been in the chapel, and apparently this Orphona community had come in there when he was sitting in there with his dog. And he said, "Oh, I'll get up and go out." And they went, "No, no, no, you stay, And he said, "But I'm not really religious." And they said, "No, no, no, it's all right. All faiths and none, you know."
Yeah, all faiths and none, as long as you're not into goddess spirituality and witchcraft.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
So
I remember years ago, I had a good friend who was, Christian, and she sat me down and said, "You know tarot cards are evil, don't you?" And I'm like, "Obviously you haven't used them."
yeah.
It's amazing what people can be afraid of, especially now when there's so
Yeah,
much information around. It's pretty easy to find out about things.
exactly. Exactly. But they like to hang on to these kind of and I was compelled. I mean, there is a bit in my book that I might read out. Is that all right if I read it out to you?
Please do.
Um and folks, this is I think I did put this out as a social media post the other day. So forgive me if you've already read it. I did send it out as a newsletter. I've now got to find the damn thing. Where is it? And it's about the witch wound, because I think that it's prevalent. It's still prevalent in our society, very much a wound that we as witches still feel. And when I left that meeting the other day with this guy, I was determined not to allow it to stop me from finding another retreat center. It'll come to me. It'll happen sooner or later. I'm not in any rush, but it will happen. There's got to be somewhere else that will suit suit it. But and two, I thought, no, I have allowed this to stop me so many times in my life before. You know, all my adult life, I've had this kind of prejudice, this kind of judgment about who I am or what I do just because of what I believe in. And it has hurt me. It has hurt me. And I've allowed it to stop me from going forwards. But I've made a decision, no more. It's not going to stop me anymore. So this is okay, so this is just a small reading from Riches for Witches. For centuries, the witches and wise ones have healed with plants, midwifed the living and the dying, counselled lost souls, read messages in the stars, channeled spirits, and honoured the cycles of nature. We have cared for the earth and each other, and yet, for hundreds of years, many were singled out and suffered intolerance and persecution. They were hunted, tortured, hung, burned, and drowned on account of their gender, religion, ethnicity, and social standing. Any kind of oppression and discrimination is unacceptable, but to be persecuted for sharing these magical gifts with our fellow humans is a crime against humanity. Thank the gods for the ferocious, divine, feminine. So, yeah. So the witch wound manifests as a form of disempowerment that prevents us from allowing our gifts to shine and speak our truth. It can show up as insecurity, lack of confidence, and imposter syndrome, to name but a few. It weighs us down and stops us from living our true and divine purpose. It stops us from believing in the magic of ourselves. And I think, you know, that is why I write. When I wrote that book, when I wrote the book beforehand, The Witch Wavelength, it was for all the people who want to believe in the magic of themselves, you know, and to give them the confidence to be who they truly, really are, you know, to step into that magical nature and walk the path. Because we've talked about this, Kate. I mean, you know, it's something that we do quite naturally, isn't it, as writers? Because you were saying the other day about how people have asked you often about a magical practice or a spiritual practice and how they establish that, how they develop it. So what do you think? Over to you. I've chatted too long.
Yeah. I don't think our society has really been built on letting people be different. And I think along the way, we've forgotten a lot of our magical selves because it's so materialistic out there these days. But I really think that if we want to survive what is coming in the world, we need to step back into that magic. We need to realize that the world is spirit as well as physical, and we really need to start living it. And it's not just, you know, doing a spell here or a spell there. It's a way of life, isn't it, Sheena? It's from when you get up in the morning till you go to bed. It's the way you live. It's the way you think. It's the way you see depth in everything that's out there and in yourself, and how you reflect that back out to the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's.
I mean, as
It's
a tarot reader, I don't know about you, Kate, but I mean, you love the tarot, don't you? And I tend to think, because I've been reading the tarot practically all my life and teaching it, I tend to think tarot language. Like I think, oh, this is like today was a 4 of Swords. It was a 4 of Swords day today. Rest and healing. And then tomorrow I might be ready for that 3 of Pentacles. Back to work, you know, back to work. But yeah, I tend to think in the language of the tarot. You know, my whole pattern of thinking is like magical, if you like, because I think in terms of earth, air, fire, and water, and spirit.
That's awesome.
I can't help it. Yeah, it just comes naturally. But I love it. That's kind of my language. But it's what you get used to, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's definitely what you get used to. And I think all of us here recognize that. and want to live it deeply. I mean, the world is so big and wide, and I'm not just saying, it's the countries are big or whatever, or outside is big. I mean, the depth of it, the spiritual aspect to the world is huge. And once you start stepping into that, it's like the things that can happen and the things that you can do and the way that you can feel about life is just amazing. And
I know. And also, I mean, in your books, I mean, what I've read so far of The Gathering, Kate, I mean, they're packed full of spiritual experience, and like as you say, you've experienced those things that Morgan and Erin experienced. I've only got as far as Morgan and Erin, really. A little bit of Ambrose, obviously. Poor old Teresa's gone, so I don't know if you resurrect her at any point, or I don't know. But I'm interested, already intrigued to find out more about where she comes from, because obviously, as Erin, noses about Ash Cottage, she finds her little bag, doesn't she? She finds her witchy bag of all her tools and everything.
yes.
And when I was listening to that today, I was thinking, oh God, yeah, it sounds just like the stuff that I've got, scattered around the house. Because it is, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we all have a lot of that stuff scattered around our house. That
Yeah.
was fun
So
though.
what was your
Teresa makes an appearance in the Selena books in the second series because that's set 15 years before, but
oh
she's not a big
wow.
part of it. And I keep getting asked actually to write sort of a background book on Teresa and on Ambrose too, for that matter. So I might,
Oh, that
because
would be
I
cool.
like her
That would
so
be very
much.
cool.
And I love the way she
Yeah, I
she
like the sound of
speaks to Stefan. I don't know whether you've read any of that yet. You might not be up to that, but some of the things that she's taught Stefan, the way to think, how
yeah,
to prune his thoughts and things, to think of his mind as a garden and to grow in your mind garden what will serve you rather than what will sabotage you.
yeah,
I think that's a
yeah,
fundamental thing that we can all learn from. I think we have to do that if we want to step into the
yeah,
world in as authentic and powerful way as possible. We have to control all the rubbish that
yeah,
goes on in our mind
yeah. It's
because it's so
absolutely
easy
fundamental, and
to
I love.
turn ourselves off, just by
Yeah,
listening to the voices in our head. So we have to make sure that those
yeah,
voices are the ones that serve us best.
yeah. I love
Shirley
that
says,
massive
I and
message.
my siblings were
We're
all
all
baptized
baptized.
as Mormons when I was 8. Gosh, that would be different. I realized in my teens that religion was not for me, as I've always loved everything about the universe and nature. I love the elements. I love nature. I always found that nature was the best form of worship. I have 11 siblings, and only 2 have remained in the Mormon church. Well, there we go.
Oh,
That's a testament to
yeah,
relevancy there, isn't it?
absolutely.
Living in magic
Yeah,
makes me feel so in tune, Anna says. Experiencing the thin web that connects us all makes me think that we can be more humans. I agree. I think the way we live has forced us apart, even though it's so much easier to get together. This sort of global living while we can communicate with each other. I think loneliness has become one of the biggest plagues we have. It's so easy to feel isolated instead of as though we belong. And that's one of the things I'm trying to show a different way of, I guess, in what I'm writing,
yeah.
to show that
And
we can belong with each other
yeah,
if we
and I
care to
think
try.
the garden metaphor is something that I really resonate with, and I use all the time in my writing. About sowing seeds of, and use it and working with the wheel of the year. I think that we have to constantly think about weeding and pruning our garden, and nurturing the soil of our mental um our mental energy to the garden soil, so that we can plant seeds that grow and tend them. But I love working. This is where I love working with the cycles and the seasons, because I love in bulk, because in bulk to me is a time of sowing seeds,
Right.
and spring. And but hey, we still have to keep doing that. We still have to keep tilling the soil. We still have to keep watering the soil. We still have to, when things start to bloom, we have to deadhead the roses. We have to prune off what doesn't serve us anymore, because sometimes ideas don't become anything. But I think that as writers, Kate, I think that we're constantly working our magic with our books, because they are acts of magic, aren't they? You're manifesting something that as you've started from scratch, from nothing. And it
Yeah.
grows. I mean, it grows. Look at all your characters, and like you say, it's like a web, isn't it? They just branch out, and before you know it, you've got this whole galaxy of goings on in your story.
That is true. I think we humans are so good at creating things. We do it all the
Yeah.
time, over and over and every day. And I think we forget that because, going and baking a cake or something doesn't on the surface of it seem very magical, but you're creating something. And if you do it in a mindset of this expansive spirit of creation and magic, then your life is so enriched, and you're putting love
Oh,
and care into that
yeah.
cake you've made, or you're putting love and care into, dressing your toddler in the morning, whatever you're doing, there's a way of doing it that is deep and valuable. And all it is a mindset change. And that begins with that garden pruning of your thoughts and things. Because we have terrible
Yeah.
voices that can speak to us, our own voices inside our
Oh
heads. We
God,
can
tell
say
me about
terrible
it.
things to ourselves,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
it's,
mean, after I
and
when I left that meeting with that guy the other day, I mean, I went in the chapel, which is like 5 minutes away, and I cried. I cried. I lit my candle, and I thought, bloody hell, this has happened again. You know, cried a few tears, and then I thought, no, Sheena, this isn't going to hold you back anymore. And off I went on my bike along the sea wall. And woe and betide, I wish I could show you on my phone. I haven't got my phone with me. It's downstairs, but I took a picture of it. There, like there's farmers' fields all along the seawall, and I stopped at a farmer's field where there was a huge pile of straw bales burning. They'd lit because they're not good enough to bring in from the fields, so they burn them. And I thought, my God, how poignant what I've just experienced, and it made me think, okay, it made me grateful for being who I am in this time period, because if I'd have come from the 16th century, I would have been burnt. I would be on that bloody straw bale, and I got really close to it, and I thought, how would they have felt? How would they have felt to have actually had their lives taken from them just for their beliefs, just for believing in folklore, and wanting to help people, wanting to heal people? What is all that about? And this whole, and I thought about, you're talking about the garden and weeding those thoughts out, and I thought, I've got to get rid of these thoughts of judge, of fear of being judged now, because you know uh, it's about helping others to, and I feel really strongly about helping others to do the same. And that's why I probably wrote that Riches for Witches, because what you said, every part of our life is an opportunity to create magic, to enrich our lives with all the different layers of that magic gives us, um and I thought to myself the other day, right, that's it, I'm going to put it out there, I'm going to try and see if anybody else wants some help with this whole witch wound thing, because I know a lot of women that do still live with that fear of judgment, worrying about what other people think. That's a you know that's something that, I mean, my poor old mum, who's not with me anymore, but I mean, she worried all her life about what other people were thinking. I used to say, Mum, who's they? She'd say, oh, they, I'm not sure what they'll think. And I'd say, who's they? Other people. And I'd say, oh, Mum, for God's sake, why are you worried about what other people think? But it was pointless arguing with her about it, because it was so deeply embedded in her psyche. That was the way she lived her life, you know, being almost over conscientious about everything because she was worried about what people were going to think, you know.
That's so sad, isn't it?
And I
That
thought,
must have been so
I know,
constraining. And I know in the past, you know, people have been a lot more in communities and things. People do say and do things that make others feel pretty shit if they're going against the grain. But these days, I really don't think that people think about others all that much.
no,
I mean,
this is
I walk down the street and I look quite different to most people. So I'm used to having people notice me, but honestly, most of the time, no one notices at all. No one's looking at you, no one's thinking about you, no one's pointing at you in their mind going, "Oh, look at her, doesn't she look weird?" They're not thinking about you at all, they're thinking about their own stuff.
no,
So, you might as well just get
exactly.
out there and be who you are.
Exactly, because nobody really cares. Nobody really
No.
cares. Exactly. So, you know, I have to I had a good talking to myself the other day and thought, you've got to have a word with yourself here, Sheena. Just stop worrying about what other people think anymore. Fear of judgment, it's gone. And I just have to find a way of finding my peace with that, because, you know, I can become, I can get angry about being judged and being discriminated and against. And not just me, you know, we're coming up to Samhain over here, Kate, in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's the time of our ancestors. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's always the time of our ancestors, because I think about our ancestors all the time anyway. But obviously, at Samhain, it's a little bit more poignant. I mean, can I ask you a question? And also, anybody else in the audience, please. You know, they say at Samhain, at Beltane, it's the thinning of the veil. You know, it's when the veil is thin. What do you think about that? Do you think that, because I think the veil is thin all the bloody time? You know, I think again that's just a perspective, isn't it? What do you think, Kate? I'm really interested to see what you think
I was
about
gonna say the
it. Over
same
to you.
thing. I mean, I I like the fact that at certain times of the years, we actually consciously think about it. You know, the veil is sin, you know, we
Yeah,
can reach through and speak to the ancestors or whatever we're doing at that time of the year. But for me, the veil is thin every second of the day. That's just the way I
yeah,
live.
yeah,
There's very little separation. But, you know, that's that's how I view the world. It's big. There are
yeah,
lots of folds in it. You know, there's depth to everything. Everything has spirit, and everything can be reached. And that's the way I live. So when I get to Beltane or whatever and the veil's thin, I'm like, mm-hmm, it is. Like it was yesterday.
yeah. I know, I know. Um, I mean, we went to
But
visit a
that,
friend
yeah,
last.
that's, I was just going to
No,
say
go on,
that's
carry
just the
on.
way I
Sorry.
live. Hmm. No, carry on.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as magical practitioners and witches and druids, and we are walkers, the walkers between the worlds, aren't we? That's our job. I see that as my role, is, you know, in whatever I do, whether it's my writing or whether it's my, like, for example, we went to see a friend of ours last night who is having trouble selling her family home from childhood. She grew up there. I mean, she's in her 60s now, and her and her three sisters, their parents have passed, and they've got this rambling old, beautiful 500-year-old house that they can't sell. It's been on the market for about, I think, about 2 years, and they just can't sell it. Whenever there's somebody who has an interest in it, they something goes wrong, the drains go wrong, or something needs doing on the house, and it puts people off, you know. So she said to me, oh, we've got this medium coming over. Somebody, because they run a shop. They've got like a little village shop downstairs, and a medium came in and said, I'd love to come and have a walk around your house and see what I can pick up, because Diana, my friend, she's been seeing spirit all her life. She's had people sitting on the end of her bed. She's had people walking. She's seen people walking in the corridors. She's heard them, and it's just natural to her. And she said, well, what do you think, Sheena? I said, well, it won't do any harm. If you can get somebody who can actually talk, connect with these spirits, and maybe it might be something, it might be a spiritual thing, but also it might be a psychological thing with you, Di, because you might be thinking, although consciously you want the house to sell, unconsciously you might be hanging on to your childhood, the memories that you've got attached to the place. There's so many different aspects of a house that you've lived in for all that time in your life, that might be blocking selling it. So Ian and I went over last night and we had a walk round. And I've always loved the house. I used to spend a lot of time there when I was a teenager, and never felt any funny vibes or strange things or anything. I've always loved it. And we sat downstairs and we lit a candle and we just chatted over a cup of coffee about stuff, about, what would her parents be thinking? What would those, who would the spirits have been? And we just chatted. And that to me is working magical. That it is, you don't have to sit there and have a ritual and, have a seance. You don't need, yes, you can do that, but you don't have to do it. You can sit there and talk, because to me, that working spiritually is totally natural thing. Just talk about it to other people. And I said to Di, you don't need, nobody needs to really have a medium to contact somebody on the other side. We can do it so easily ourselves. And this is where the witches and the magical practitioners have been penalized and victimized for being who we are, because we never wanted an intermediary. We didn't need a priest, we didn't need a vicar to connect with the forces of nature and the creative forces of the universe, did we? Sorry, I'm getting on my bandwagon. I'm ranting a bit here, but again, I'm
all
keep
right.
going.
You carry on.
But I feel so strongly that this is something that we all do naturally, don't we? But having said that, if somebody were to say to you, Kate, I've just come to your books and I've just come to the magical path, and I'd really like to start establishing some form of spiritual practice, what would you say? What would be your advice?
I would say that the place to start was with a few foundational things. I have a few things that I think are really foundational to this sort of living. One of them is pruning your thoughts, like we were talking about before. Thinking about the voices in your head and seeing what they're saying, and snipping off the ones that are sabotaging you. I think that's essential, because we have to be able to control what voices we listen to and how we respond to things. And second one, I would say, is start taking notice of your dreams. Even if you don't do much with them, just remembering what you can and immersing yourself in that sort of symbolic language is really helpful. It's a different aspect of the world. Your dreams can show you really easily that it's a deeper place than you live on the surface. And I think the third one is, I'm all about daily practice. And by that I mean doing things that will help you step into walking through your day as though it's a more meaningful, creative, and deeper place. And I find that the easiest way to do that is to start off your day, particularly. And I go on and on about this in the books. Big thing that I do is to greet the day, and by putting myself into that space at the very first, when you first get up, it sets the tone for the day, and it's a reminder, really, that as you walk through the day, the world is a bigger place and you're part of it, and spirit is in everything. So those three things, I think, are the way to start. If you want to get on doing other things, witchcraft, spell making, and all that sort of thing, I think that's great. But it should come after developing this depth within yourself, and just acknowledging to yourself that the world is a deeper place and it has currents and spirit, and it's living that sort of embodied spiritual life is a day-to-day thing. So that's where I'd start. And
Yeah,
I've been
definitely.
asked what my morning routine is, and it's pretty similar to what's in the books. I start when I first get up. I get up, make my coffee, and then I walk outside, and I literally greet the day, and I have a prayer that I say. There is actually it's actually based on the Hail Mary. I ripped it off from that and changed it, but it's very
Oh,
short
brilliant.
like that. Mhm. And I greet the goddess that I work with, and so on. And then I greet the rising sun, and that's that sets me up for the day. So I've already stepped into that space. Then I come back inside, and then I'm generally working for a while. And then I have another morning prayers that I do, and I've actually started to use a couple of prayers that I wrote for the book, and that's when I will light a candle and do it more formally, and I'll often pull a tarot card or three, depending on how I'm feeling. So I've embedded those routines or rituals within the day because they're like an anchor. So they anchor me in the day so that I can walk through it in that knowledge that it's a deeper place. And so I keep coming back to that. So I go forward and then I keep coming back to those sorts of things during the day because it just makes it easier, and it makes it mindful so that your whole day is mindfully spent. I think, mindful's a word that gets bandied around a lot now, which is a good thing because I do think we need to be more mindful of everything we do. We need to do everything with intention. And when we create things, we need to know that we're creating things. And when we think, we need to know that we're thinking. We need to know everything that we're doing and do it consciously and mindfully. So, and I find that the morning rituals that I do help me with that.
Yeah, magical
Catherine said.
mindfulness.
Yeah, it's actually really important. It's such a simple thing. You say that and say, oh, you have to be mindful about things. And it sounds very simple, but it's actually hard because we live inside our heads so often, all the time, generally. We're just, going along, thinking, reacting, thinking, reacting. And it's just totally inside our heads. And one of the little practices I have is to um, bring myself out of my head all the time and into my center, into my heart, and walk from there. And it
Yeah,
makes it nice and quiet and peaceful and calm inside my head. And
yeah,
that's yeah, it's really helpful to keep bringing yourself up short. Oh, I'm just thinking all the time instead of living. I think we miss out on a lot of our lives because we're so busy thinking, oh, what's going on over there? Oh, somebody said that to me. Oh, then what are they going to think of me if I do that? And it's just this
yeah,
constant run of thoughts that stop you from actually living. So, so learning
yeah.
how to control those things is important. And then remembering to live inside your body as well. Because funnily enough, I find that doing or living magically, you, while you're dealing with spirit a lot, you have to do it from inside your body, which you would think wouldn't be the case, right? Because spirit's this amorphous thing outside you or whatever. But you actually have to be really embodied and grounded to be able to walk like that through a day. And I think that's really interesting.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that reminds me of one of my favourite practices, which is witch walking, which is to walk with intention. And obviously, I've got the dog, so and I do that every day. First thing in the morning. Well, the first thing that I do is journal. So I light a candle, I get my journal out, and I just connect with yeah, just in go turn within and connect with my magical self, with who I am magically, which is spiritual, which is, you know, I don't really see, I don't know about you, Kate, or anybody else, but I don't really see magic and spirit as being two different things. I see them as being the same, you know, so I will use that word interchangeably. Um, and I journal for about 10, 15, maybe sometimes half an hour. And then I take the dogs out. And then when I take the dogs out, I try to, not every day, but I try to make it a witch walk where I'm magically intending to connect with this, with the elements all around me, you know, earth, air, fire and water, spirit. And if there's anything in particular that I want to focus on, I'll focus on that, open up to the elements, and just ask for inspiration. If there's something that I need some help with on an idea, where to go next with a story or a book, you know, the next part of the book that I need to write, then yeah, and then always I will go in the chapel and light a tea light, light a candle, and send my thoughts out to all those in need, anybody in particular, and always a gratitude practice, give thanks. You know, just for getting up in the morning, even before I've got out of bed, I think, well, you know, here's another day. I'm glad that I've got another day, you know, because there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that, you know, pop off in their sleep and don't see that other day. So I'm always grateful for that. And um, you know, try and make the most of it, because we can easily get into a kind of vibe of complaining about things, and I can't be doing with that anymore. I know that I've ranted for quite a lot this session today, and you being there, lovely, peaceful, calm, sort of, you know, presence. And I'm like, yeah, I've got to stop worrying about that. I've just got to stop worrying about being judged and being unfairly discriminated against, and because it's all a load of rubbish. It's all rubbish. It's all stuff that I
Yeah,
don't need to worry about.
we do feel those things though, and I think we have to acknowledge the fact that we do have these feelings. I just don't think we can live in them, you know. So
Yes.
something you've experienced, this judgment and this disappointment, well, you can certainly allow yourself to say, you know, I'm really disappointed by this and I don't like the feeling that I got when they judged me and found me different. But that's not where you
Mm,
live. You don't go on to brood for the next week
no.
over that. You keep moving on.
No.
And I was just thinking while you were talking that one of the other things that I do in the course of my day is to make sure that I walk with my spirit team. I talk a lot in the books about our
Mhm.
spirit kin. And so I'm constantly bringing them into my day, reminding myself that I'm not here doing this on my own, that I actually have these others who are
No.
working with
No.
me and
Yeah.
rooting for me. And just that means that it's easier because you're not alone for starters. And, you know, you're not doing all this hard stuff on your own. And
Mhm.
when people ask me, well, how do you do that? And I just say, well, you start with just use your imagination.
Mm.
Just imagine that they're there with you. And
Yeah.
um, imagination is such a thing that I think it's totally underused, underestimated. I think it's a lot more powerful than we give it credit for. I mean, everything stems really from imagination. That's how we start creating. We imagine first, and we can
Yeah.
use our imagination in so many ways. Um, while I'm doing my prayers and things, I will imagine that I am standing both in this world and the other world. And so I imagine the trees of the other world, my other world place around me. And that's what I do while I'm
Yeah.
praying. And that means I'm standing in both places at once. And I do that a lot during the day. I bring those trees around me because that
Mm,
that gives me
mm.
the, I want to say sensation, but it's actually more of a reality. It's hard to speak about these things and find the words that are adequate for it.
Oh,
Um,
I know exactly what you
you're in both
mean, 'cause
places. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got my tree house down the bottom of our garden that Ian built me a few years ago, and it's built around the most beautiful eucalyptus tree. And so I go and sit in there, and the tree is in there with me, you know, and I have, and that, to me, that is the tree is my guardian spirit, you know, and I go in there and I talk to the tree, and I don't care what people think, you know. But think about it, we've got so many wonderful spirits, the nature spirits, the spirits of the cosmos, animal spirits, they're everywhere, aren't they? They're everywhere. And I mean, you talking about imagination, I think the imagination is the portal to the other world. And I always say to my students, you know, before we do some hedge riding, before we do some journeying, you know, don't worry if you get into that kind of thought, well, actually, I think I'm just making this up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's how it starts. You know, that's how it starts. Just go with it. You know, and
That is
I've
exactly
just got to
right. I'm
read this
glad.
because,
So I
yeah,
was
go
just going
on.
to say portal is exactly the right word. Imagination is the
Yeah,
portal to the other world
it
completely.
is. It is. And that made me think of, because I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm sitting in my office here and I've just got things stuck on my desk and, you know, quotes from books. I've got to read this out because it's just what you've said, really. And it's from a book he's called Maurice Nicoll, and it's called Living Time. I haven't actually read it yet. It's one of those books that I've bought myself because I read a bit of it and I
I've
thought
got
I've got to
lots of
get that.
those.
Yeah, I haven't actually got around to reading it yet. Never mind. As you can see, guys, I've got lots of books. But anyway, so this is a bit of it, and I just love this section of it. We do not grasp that we are invisible. We do not understand that life, before all definitions of it, is a drama of the visible and the invisible. We think that only the visible world has reality and structure, and do not conceive the possibility that the inner world we know as thought, feeling, and imagination may have a real structure and exist in its own space, although not the space that we are in touch with through our physical senses. He's talking about magic, isn't
So
he?
true. Yeah.
Even though he didn't know it.
But I mean, here's something else that I do. I always talk to things. Like I'll say hello to the house because to me the house has
Yeah.
spirit. I'll say hello to a tree because a tree has its own spirit. And
Yeah.
by talking to these things, it sounds completely crazy. Fortunately, the people that I live with are totally used to it. So they probably have long got used to me being nuts. Um, but I'm always I talk to my car because it has its own spirit now. Um, everything. I
Yeah.
particularly are keen on acknowledging the spirits of our houses because we live in
Mm,
them. We have to have a sort of good relationship with them. And so I've
mm,
moved around a lot in my life. So one of the things I like to do when I move into a new house is to greet it, introduce myself,
mm.
and then say, this is the sort of relationship that I would like us to have, and then nurture that. Katie says, I started saying hello to our house after reading about it in your book and my car. That's good. They appreciate it. Trust me.
Yeah.
What I don't like though
No,
is
I do.
ghosts in my house.
Oh, mm.
I lived in
Oh,
a
it's
few
so
houses that were a bit busy and inhabited in that way, and it's disquieting. But that's getting a bit off topic, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any
Yeah, that's a
questions?
good
Kate
idea.
and I have been chatting. I've been ranting a bit. Sorry about that, guys. But does anybody have any questions for us before we sign off? Because we'd love to answer them. If you've got any other questions or things that you want to share with us about your own magical practices, because it's always interesting, isn't it, Kate, to hear about other people's practices, and especially, you know, there's quite a few that lovely people that have said they do, you know, your writing has inspired them in some way to develop a practice or to start doing this or start doing that. I think that's wonderful. I do the same, Kate. Speak to my house daily. No good questions, just to thank you for sharing. I learned so much from you. Thank you, Emily. Rants are good to listen
And
to. It's just passion. Yeah,
that's
I'm a
what I
bit
was about to
fiery.
say.
I'm a bit fiery.
I think it's good to be passionate about life. I mean, we're here,
Yeah, I
we live
can't
in
help.
it.
Well,
You might
yeah,
as well have some feelings about it. But like I say, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I talk to my car too. Yeah,
I too.
I love my car.
I
She
mean,
carries
I'm
me
always
around.
thinking,
Works so hard.
yeah, yeah. That's us Saggies for you. Yay, Sagittarius. Um, yeah, have to just, you know, mind that I don't burn myself out too much with dancing around in flames of passion the whole time. That's why I love you know, my walks, because I think, oh, I'm going to the water. I need water. I need cooling down a bit. I love being out in the fresh air. I love feeling the ground beneath my feet, you know, because I think that if we can be too we can immerse ourselves possibly too much in one element, and you know, and that can go for any element, can't it, really? I mean, if we're too earthy, we can get too grounded. We can sometimes, we, you know, so steady and dependable, and that we don't move forward maybe as much as we could do. If we're too
That's
airy,
probably
if we
my issue.
oh, what, too much earth,
Too grounded.
too
Forget to
grounded.
walk.
Yeah, but you've just been, what have you just been talking about for the last hour? Magic. I mean, you know, that's and that goes on in, although you feel it in your body, it's also something that is in your thoughts, is in your heart, is in, you know, and you express it in your writing. So I wouldn't say you're overly grounded, Kate. I'd say that you're pretty well balanced.
Mm, yeah, I think in the past, I was always super reluctant to deal with change, and sometimes moving forward means things are going to change. But we all have things like that, don't we? That we have to overcome. I think it's good to acknowledge, you know, where our shortcomings might be so that we can do something about them.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I always used to like things to be, you know, labeled and properly put where they're supposed to be so that I know exactly where I am and what I'm doing. But now it's more like, let's just go with the flow. Flow is good.
yeah, definitely. I think that whenever I feel like I'm struggling and, you know, battling uphill, resisting, going against the flow, um, I think, oh, come on, Sheena, just, you know, stop struggling, stop battling, um, just let the oars go, let your boat just go downstream, you know, just follow the current of energy. And I always find that going to the beach, you know, standing on the shoreline is such a magical thing for me to do, because I just look at the
Mm.
ebb and flow of the tide. I think, okay, I might be feeling like this at the moment, you know,
But the
where's the
yeah,
fight, mate? Where's the fight? I might be feeling like this at the moment, but actually it's going to pass. All feelings ebb and flow, don't they? They come and go. And
they certainly do.
and then I'll, yeah, yeah. So yeah. Oh, it's very nice
Well,
things that people are saying. Catherine and Shirley and Helen, thank you so much.
Catherine, I just want to
Again,
read this one. She said, Catherine says, I feel like I had a spontaneous soul retrieval by reading about Veronica getting a piece of her soul back. I'm so glad that you've said that. I hoped that reading about those things would actually make those things happen, which sounds weird, but I don't know. There's something about the act of writing it and the act of reading it can help those things just happen on their own spontaneously. So it's nice to know that actually does work out like that. And I know that we haven't touched on all the things that we were going to. Someone said we never got around to runes and automated writing. I think it's going to be like this all the time, isn't it, Sheena? We're just going to go off on tangents. But this is going to be recorded. Replays are going to be available. So it's going to sit there so people can watch it.
Yeah. And also, if anybody's got any pressing questions that they feel they want to ask Kate or myself, then please do. We're very open to, we're pretty approachable. I love answering questions. I love helping people, even if it's just a listening ear, and I hope that we're pretty ordinary. Well, I'm not saying we're pretty magical, but I'd like to think that I'm down to earth enough, and I know you are, Kate, as well. We're down to earth enough that we're open to everybody's experiences, and everybody's ideas and opinions. And I know I can be a little bit opinionated sometimes, but it's only because I've got a bit hurt by powers that be. But hey, these things are sent to try us, and but yeah, we'll try and think of some kind of a theme. Maybe we can touch on runes. I don't know much about runes, Kate. I have got a beautiful set of them. I made my own. I spent about 3 months picking up sandstones on the shoreline on my witch walks, and I've got the most beautiful set of runes, but I still have to use the book. I'm not like with the tarot where I don't need the book anymore, but I still have to use the book with the runes because I just haven't got round to learning them all off by heart.
That's all right. I still use the book too. I don't know why. I've been using runes for like 30 years or something, but I still look them up. It's crowded in here.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going to run another session. We're going to run another session. We're going to do this again, aren't we, Sheena? You actually have picked a date for us and all.
Every couple of weeks, everybody. So, this is going to be ongoing because we really enjoy it, and we hope that you are as well. So the next date is the 9th of November. I think that's a Thursday. So that's a couple of weeks' time. But obviously we'll keep you posted. Kate, you're pretty regular with your keeping in touch with your people, and I send regular newsletters. So just stay in touch, and hopefully I'll have read The Gathering by the next time we might meet up again. I'll be on to the next one. What is the next one, Kate? What's the next one after The Gathering?
The next one is called The Belonging, and it carries straight on from where the action ends in The Gathering. Yeah, they're pretty much all one big story. It's just, had to put it in several books.
Yeah,
and hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll be about almost getting finished with a couple of weeks. Oh no, I've still got a while to go. I should be finished with the North Star by the end of November, beginning of December, and then of course it has to go through its editing and all that. But I'm really excited to be writing it. And so
great,
that's good.
Great. Well, look after yourselves.
Thank you all
everybody.
for tuning up.
Thank you for
we'll see you again soon. If you have any questions, just write them under some post somewhere, or send them straight to us.
And go out and keep being the magic, and talking the magic. And you know, magic is something that we don't just do, we become it. It's become something that's so inherent in all of us that you know, I think that's what makes our lives magical, is that we actually step into that space and become it. Because magic to me is something that's transformational. It changes us. And you know, the nature of life is to change, isn't it? We have to change with it. But to actually practice magic and deliberately change what we want to change for the better, you know, consciously, is a magical thing to do. And this
It's also
this is a magical thing to
it's
do. I
also
mean,
our
here I am
native.
in the UK,
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Yeah. I think magic is our natural state of being. We've just forgotten it along the way. So the more of us who can remember that and step into who we really are, the better the world is going to be. And goodness knows it needs us. So just give it all we have.
Yeah. So we're sending lots of magic your way, everybody, and take good care of yourselves. And we'll speak to you again very soon. Thank you. Have a good evening. And those that are in the Southern Hemisphere, including Kate, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye for now.